This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers were back in the field for practice earlier today, and that included quarterback Jordan Love. Reporters saw him throwing passes a day after he was limited due to an elbow injury he suffered against the Bears last Sunday. Love said yesterday he was hopeful he'd be able to play when the Packers go to Philadelphia on Sunday for the wild card round. It obviously appears to be headed that way. The Packers will need all hands on deck against a Philadelphia defense that has played at a high level much of the year, certainly has the attention of Coach Matt LaFleur.
I don't think they change necessarily from week to week. They are game wrong. They do a lot of the things that they do, but what they do complements everything that they do, especially, in the back end. And they got a great front. I mean, not to mention the backers are playing well. I think Zach Vaughn he's playing as well as anybody. Nakobe Dean. They just got a lot of great players.
Again, it'll be the Packers and the Eagles on Sunday in Philly. Eagles favored by 4.5. Green Bay, a 7.5-point underdog last year when they went into Dallas and won on Wild Card Weekend. Kick on Sunday is set for 3:30.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, it's a travel day for the Bucs. They're going to make their way to Orlando tonight. They're going to face the Magic tomorrow night in the first of a 2-game road trip that will also see them face New York this weekend. And Wisconsin guard Max Klesmit is listed as day-to-day with an ankle injury he suffered against Rutgers. The Badgers host Minnesota tomorrow night at the Kohl Center. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, printed.
We've got a confident group, but we know it's going to be a great challenge. And that's part of the fun. I don't think anything in life that's worth doing is without challenge. And so you got to embrace that and attack it head on and control the things that are fully within your control. And it starts for us. It starts with our preparation. So I never like to compare. I think every year is a little bit different. There's different people on the team. But I know you guys like to do that and I respect that. But, I just try to stay in the moment and focus on, like I said, the things that we are in complete control of. And that's how we come in each and every day and how are we preparing for a really good football team. Sometimes you can play your best and still not win the game. And sometimes you can play really bad and find ways to win games. So I thought we had a great day today. I thought the energy's been fantastic. Hopefully we can build upon that tomorrow.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's Matt LaFleur. Just a couple hours ago this afternoon, the comment before the intro and then the comment once the music started. Two different pieces from two different answers. I selected them both to be a part of the intro. I thought they were both interesting for different reasons. The long response there at the beginning was to a Jason Wilde question about, last year you guys were red hot going into the playoffs. It felt like, you're playing with house money, the team that no one wants to see. This year is a little different. And LaFleur didn't really love the comparison. And I read his intro, the show's intro. I read his comment as, look, sometimes you play your best football and it doesn't result in wins. Sometimes you don't play your best football and you get a win anyway. We're focused on preparing, practicing, and trying to show up to play our best possible game on Sunday. And I read that as, last year, maybe we got away with a couple wins we didn't deserve. And maybe this year, we've played really good. It just hasn't resulted in wins all the time. Either way, our focus every week is practicing the best we possibly can, and we're going to try to get the best result on Sunday. Hopefully it works out. That's how I read that. Like last year, yeah, guys, we were red hot, but it didn't mean we were necessarily playing our best ball. This year, right, we've lost some games that have been close, and I think we played pretty well. Maybe not our best, but we played pretty well. We just haven't always resulted in wins, right? And if you talk to football coaches, sometimes they'll tell you, the result is a little overrated sometimes when you're trying to really measure how good a football team is week to week. Sometimes you make a lot of mistakes, you get away with it. And some weeks you play really well, and then you don't get a bounce of the ball or you don't get a particular call to go your way, and you end up losing. And I thought that commentary in the context of comparing last year versus this year was very interesting. He also had a comment in there. It's like, look, this is a great challenge, but that's part of the fun. This Eagles team is great. That's what makes this worthwhile. And I included that in the intro too, because I think Packers fans need to hear that a little bit. Everyone this week is like, oh yeah, the Eagles are so good and the Packers haven't played their best game yet. Yeah, that's why the Eagles are favored. But guys, like, what if the Packers show up and they put it all together and they win? That's what makes this matchup appealing to me. And that's why actually as this week goes along and we get closer to the game, I'm not saying that I'm starting to buy more into the idea that the Packers are going to win. They're underdogs for a reason. But I'm excited at the possibility. I'm excited to watch. I think this game is going to be really great. And I think Matt LaFleur in his comment there saying, it's a great team, but that's part of the fun. That's what makes this rewarding. That's what I really latched onto in his press conference earlier today. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. One guest tonight. We've had a loaded week of lots of great guests. Tom Kelly was awesome last night. Jesse Temple was great. We do have Mike Clemens at 5:30, but the rest of the show should be really wide open to react to everything that Packers coaches and coordinators had to say. We can preview Packers Eagles, maybe more specifically and maybe more hardcore than we've really been able to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday so far of this week. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you tonight. 608-321-1670, the number to call and text. You can also comment on the live stream, Facebook, Twitter, at Wisco Grant, and on YouTube. And we had a big milestone on YouTube today. I put a little tweet out this morning. I'm like, hey guys, at the time when I tweeted, we were 8 subscribers away from 300 subscribers to the Wisco Sports Show account, which just started a couple months ago. And I'm not going to act like I promoted a ton, but we got to 312 subscribers today with your help. So thank you. If you saw that on Twitter and press the subscribe button, I appreciate that. And I'm pretty proud because now that we've hit 300 subscribers, we're actually on pace. I'm always looking at Bill's show. How can we grow an audience? How can we build something like that? Now we only need 5,250 more subscribers and we'll be right on pace with the big unit. So we're getting 100 subscribers at a time. So thank you. And if you enjoy watching on the live stream, I know that's a slick way to be able to consume the show if you're not around a radio. So just trying to create more ways for people to listen and to watch and consume the show. I want to begin with a couple comments from Packers coaches and coordinators today. I also have a thought on the Bucs game last night, and then we can break and talk Packers Eagles. And if you have any thoughts, I'd love to take your call as well. Jordan Love and Malik Willis were full participants today at practice. I doubt that his elbow feels 100% completely normal. And I doubt that he was that limited yesterday. I don't know that the line of demarcation between being limited yesterday and full today, I don't know if it's a massive difference, but it's better than limited, right? It means something, even if it means only a little something. So I'll take it. Here is Matt LaFleur at his presser right away at the beginning. Bill Huber asking the important questions. How are your quarterbacks?
The quarterbacks were both full.
They were.
How's Jordan look this week, especially today?
It looked like he was full.
Stupid question coming here, but is that a good sign for him to play?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He looked fine. He looked good.
Riveting beginning to the press conference today. It was a little bit more than we got yesterday. But when Huber said, well, how did Jordan look? I'm like, he's going to say he looked full. He's going to say that there. He said it. Knew it was coming. So I guess both quarterbacks being designated as full, better than limited. But again, I don't know that it makes a massive difference. I don't think Jordan Love's elbow is going to feel amazing. I'm sure there's still some soreness. I think he'll be able to play and probably be able to throw the ball just fine. I don't know that Jordan Love's injury is what every Packers fan is hanging on. And I mentioned this yesterday, right? I think Packers fans, we'd be freaking out about this injury more if Jordan Love had been on fire over the last month, but that hasn't been the case. So Packers fans' concern, I think, is more big picture this week. Jordan really hasn't looked all that comfortable or confident. I don't know that Matt LaFleur has called and navigated games offensively, maybe is as good and is in such of a rhythm like we saw last week or last year. And these wide receivers, I don't know, have been as crisp and as clean and as detailed, and they haven't executed at as high of a level. That's more of our concern. If the offense looked like they were ready to march to a Super Bowl and then he bangs up his elbow, well, we spend this whole week talking about his elbow. That's all we're talking about. But our concerns as Packers fans have been a little bit more big picture. So the elbow is just like another thing. Like, yeah, we'll see if it affects him. They got bigger fish to fry anyway. Eagles, Jalen Hurts back at practice today. I still haven't seen, and I didn't check before the show, so I'll check to see if I can find the latest over this next commercial break. Jalen Hurts was at practice, and he was in a helmet, and I saw videos of him doing drills. I don't know if that means he's out of protocol. And there's something There's something that from everything that I've read from Eagles people and heard, we had Tom Kelly on from WIP last night. On Bill's show earlier today, we had Olivia Reiner, who used to do stuff with Ryan Wood, PackersNews.com. She's now in Philly. Very good journalist. We had her on to kind of give the Eagles perspective earlier today. And all of the Eagles people that I've heard and read have said the same thing about Jalen Hurts' injury. Well, of course, they're not going to rush him back. They didn't need him. They didn't need to rush him at the end of the year. They want to get him fully healthy. That makes sense. But this isn't a knee injury. This isn't a sore foot. This is a concussion. Whether or not he's in concussion protocol has nothing to do with the urgency of the team bringing him back from injury. It has nothing to do with it. He will exit concussion protocol when he's cleared by independent neurologists. So if he remains in concussion protocol after today, and I haven't checked because I've been more focused with what LaFleur and we're going to hear from Jeff Hafley here in a sec. But all these Eagles people are like, well, of course, they're not rushing him back. You can't rush someone in or out of concussion protocol. Concussion protocol is its own thing. He will exit concussion protocol when he's cleared. And the pace with which, or the urgency with which he's cleared from that protocol has nothing to do with the state of the Eagles or how much they need him. So I'm trying to get the most up-to-date injury information on Jalen Hurts, and I'm only getting it from these Eagles people who come across as a little biased when they're like, well, yeah, he's not cleared, but why would they clear it? That's not in their control. That's not so. Whether or not the Eagles are rushing him back is completely separate from whether or not he's cleared protocol. And that's bothered me because it's made it really difficult to actually get the information that I want, which is, has he cleared protocol? Romeo Doubs practiced for like 2 weeks before he cleared protocol. You can return to practice and you can resume activities before being cleared, but you can't play. I still think Jalen Hurts will play, but damn it, like someone get me good information on this. So I'll check again in the Eagles sphere over this commercial break. A.J. Brown also didn't practice today. I guess he's dealing with the knee thing. Could be as simple as veteran rest, but what if he gets out there on Sunday, takes a weird step on maybe there's a slick spot on the turf, it's outside, maybe it's a little damp. What if he re-aggravates it? That's something to monitor. This is what's been annoying about Eagles information with these injuries is it's like, well, A.J. Brown didn't practice today, but blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if he's dealing with a knee, tell us he's dealing with a knee. I don't need the spin. If Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol, just tell me he's still in protocol. I don't need the spin. It's been really difficult to get accurate information because it's always presented as, yeah, but. It's like, save the yeah, but. I just want to know his designation. And in the case of Jalen Hurts, whether or not he's cleared protocol. So that's where we stand with injuries. I think Jordan Love will probably be fine. I think Jalen Hurts will probably be fine. It's just been a little annoying this week trying to get actual facts because the Packers are safeguarding everything so closely. And the Eagles media sphere is like, well, yeah, he's hurt, but why would they rush him back? Because it's not what we're dealing with. Anyways, another thing that happened in Green Bay, this was less than an hour ago now. Jeff Hafley took the podium, and I figured he would begin his press conference with a response to the final defensive play call against the Bears because it was stupid. They had everyone guarding the goal line. They gave up a free completion over the middle with plenty of time for the Bears to clock it. It just didn't make any sense, okay? So I knew Jeff Hafley's press conference would begin with a question about that. That's where it began. They were joking about something before this question. I skipped through that because I just wanted this audio. So they're coming out of some small talk. BS small talk. You'll hear laughing for that reason. Here is the beginning of Hafley's press conference when he is asked about the final sequence in Chicago, and then he explains it. It's
Asked about the last play of the game. Yeah, like here's the deal. And you know, I've been very truthful with you guys, and I'm not going to go through this one in length. Matt addressed it. There was miscommunication. It's not the call we were supposed to be in. Certainly not at that time. Obviously frustrating, disappointing. Learn from it, move on, and we're on to Philly. But I'm not going to sit here and get in and rehash all that. And I'm sorry that I can't do that. But he addressed it, and it clearly was not what we were supposed to be in. Certainly. So miscommunication, not ideal with what we're going to be in. Disappointing, learn from it. Will never happen again. So, learning experience.
That's Jeff Hafley. You know what's interesting to me about that answer? He says, I'm not going to get into detail. Well, that would make this the first time that Jeff Hafley's not willing to get into detail. We've listened to Jeff Hafley. We've listened to clips. He will talk and he'll give you the goods. He'll break it down. He'll get into the X's and O's, leverage and crossing this and cover two and schemes. He'll get in the weeds. And it's a really interesting answer, typically, when Jeff Hafley's asked about whatever. And that's why I play a lot of Jeff Hafley sound. And it's one of my favorite press conferences that we air every week on Bill's show, because there's always something juicy. This is the first time this season Jeff Hafley's been like, yeah, I'm not going to get into the details. Not going to get into that. So when I heard that, my antenna goes up. Something's different about this. Why aren't we getting into details? Why aren't we getting? He said there was a miscommunication. It's not the call that we should have been in. Won't happen again. I'm not going to get into it. I read that as someone messed up. That's not what I called. That's not what was supposed to happen. That's obviously not what should have happened. We're going to move past it. I don't think he wants to put the player on blast. Let's say that Edgerrin Cooper or somebody lined up in the wrong spot, or somebody relayed bad information to other players, which led them to be misaligned. Jeff Hafley doesn't want to air that player out in the press conference. He said, look, there was a miscommunication. We've addressed it. We're moving on. That would make sense. He's protecting his player. Or the other option, which is much more concerning to me because players make mistakes. I would prefer for them to not make mistakes in that spot, especially out of a timeout. They took a timeout to go over it, to make sure it was all good, which I was fine with. I actually encourage you. You got timeouts, might as well take one. Make sure you really know your call. Really think about what you're dialing up here. This is situational football. Take an extra second. You don't get to take the timeouts with you, right? The more concerning thing that could have happened that Jeff Hafley's covering up is Matt LaFleur called for it. Because Matt LaFleur thought, well, there's limited time. We think we can give up this completion and they won't have time to clock the ball. I think Jeff Hafley might be covering for Matt LaFleur here. And that is concerning as hell, especially considering Matt LaFleur botched the other end of the field too. Like if this was Matt LaFleur's misstep, if he called for this and he took a timeout and called up to Jeff and said, this is what I want to do, and there was a miscommunication and Hafley didn't like it, but that's what ended up getting called, and Hafley's covering for LaFleur, we need to then recognize, I don't know that a head coach could have a worse 40 seconds. I don't know that a head coach could make more bad decisions and harm their team more than Matt LaFleur did in the final 40 seconds of that game. Because if that was on Matt LaFleur, it's on someone that's not Jeff Hafley. If that mistake was on Jeff Hafley, he would have talked about it for 4 minutes. He would have talked about the alignment of every player. He would have talked about the scheme. We've listened to Jeff Hafley. That's how he operates. He would have gone balls deep in X's and O's and film fluff. He would have gotten into it. The fact that he didn't get into it means he's covering for someone. And if he's covering for Matt LaFleur, that means, scoreboard here, just follow along with me. That means that Matt LaFleur didn't know the range of his kicker, miscalled a timeout. Because even if they were going to go for it, the timeout was still wrong. There was no reason to take a timeout, no matter if you were going to kick or to go for it. But you should have known whether you were going to kick or go for it, because you should have had that conversation earlier, which obviously they didn't. The timeout, the communication with the kicker and the special teams, wrong. The timeout, wrong. Then on the other end of the field, the defensive call where you're approximating how much time is left, thinking, oh, we can give up a completion, they won't have time to spike it, wrong. That's like 3 or 4 massive things that Matt LaFleur porked in 40 seconds of game time. I don't know if it's possible for a head coach to have a more detrimental 40 seconds of situational coaching. Now, maybe it was on a player. Could have been on a player. It was on someone that's not Jeff Hafley. If that was on Jeff Hafley, he would have talked about it word after word after word. He would have went knee deep. No, he would have thigh deep, chest deep into the details of that play, and he didn't, because he's covering for someone. If it's a player, fine. It's disappointing because that means information wasn't relayed correctly from coaches to player. Fine. But if it was Matt LaFleur, and I think that's on the board, Matt LaFleur had the worst 40 seconds a head coach could possibly have. And that scares the hell out of me, considering they're going into Philly this weekend, and it's probably going to be a close game. Going in and out of halftime is important. End of game is important. Challenges are important. Timeouts are important. This is the time of year where little mistakes end your season. And I've been talking about these situations all year long, going into halftime against the Niners. the way that they mismanaged the clock going into half, I believe against the Seahawks, where they just let like 90 seconds run off for no reason at all. And I said, that's what loses you a playoff game. That's what loses you a playoff game. And then Matt LaFleur, in the final 40 seconds of the Bears game, he did something that doesn't lose you a playoff game. It loses you a regular season game against the most poorly organized and coached team in the NFL at home. So that scares me even more than I was scared. I already hated the final minute from Matt LaFleur on Sunday. I hate it more now because I kind of think Jeff Hafley's covering for Matt LaFleur's ass. Because again, if Hafley made the mistake, he would have gone neck deep talking about all the details. And he said, no, I'm not going to get into it. We've addressed it. We're going to move on. It was a miscommunication. Well, if it was Hafley's miscommunication, he would have fallen on the sword 10 different times in a 3-minute answer, and he didn't, which means it's on someone's ass. And if it's on Matt LaFleur's ass, that is a generation. That's a Hall of Fame bad coaching 40 seconds. Going into a playoff game against a great team that's pretty good at decision making. The Eagles are pretty smart situationally. So that's not exactly the taste I want in my mouth. We can continue to talk Packers-Eagles. Would love to take your call if you have thoughts. And I actually want to spend a couple minutes on last night's Bucs game because it was a really fun game, and I think there's a big picture takeaway or two about AJ Green and about Giannis. Whenever we get to that, we'll get to it. Mike Clemens at 5:30 as well. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Go ahead. Ask about the last play of the game. Yeah, like here's the deal. And you know, I've been very truthful with you guys, and I'm not going to go through this one in length. Matt addressed it. There was miscommunication. It's not the call we were supposed to be in. Certainly not at that time. Obviously frustrating, disappointing, learn from it, move on, and we're on affiliate. But I'm not going to sit here and get into rehash all that. And I'm sorry that I can't do that. But he addressed it, and it clearly was not what we were supposed to be in. Certainly. So miscommunication, not ideal with what we're going to be in. Disappointing, learn from it. Will never happen again. So learning experience.
It's Jeff Hafley earlier today. You're like, Grant, why are you still obsessing over how the Bears game ended? Well, this is the first opportunity that the media has got to ask Jeff Hafley and get his explanation, and he gave none, which is fine. Coaches give non-answers all the time. Jeff Hafley this year has been anything but a coach that gives non-answers. He'll get into the details, the nitty-gritty. He'll go into the X's and O's. And I got to think, I don't think I'm reaching here. I don't think I'm reaching. I think I'm 99%. I would bet that I'm on here. He's covering for someone, a player that didn't relay something correctly, or he's covering for Matt LaFleur. Maybe I'm reaching thinking that it's Matt LaFleur, but I am almost positive he's covering for someone. If it's Matt LaFleur, we all just need to take a moment to realize you can't have a worse 40 seconds as a head coach. And that scares the daylights out of me going into a playoff game when all of a sudden situational football becomes paramount. The playoffs, it's all situational football. Think of how many playoff games the Packers have lost because they've botched something going into halftime, coming out of halftime, time management, the final 2 minutes, timeout management. Matt LaFleur didn't know the range of his kicker, then called a timeout, which even if he had known the range of his kicker, that timeout makes no sense. Even if they're going to go for it, that timeout makes no sense. There's no reality in which that timeout makes sense. So 0 for on the kicker, 0 for on the timeout. And if he misjudged the clock or misjudged the play that was called on defense and wanted something from Hafley, and I think Hafley's covering for someone, if it's LaFleur, those are 3 of the largest blunders. Like, LaFleur, are you ready for this weekend, man? This is your 6th year in the NFL. This is a young team, but you are not a young coach. You've experienced a lot. You made the playoffs all but 1 year. I think he's coached in, 7 playoff games. This will be his 8th. I'm pretty sure. Like, that can't happen, man. It can't happen. So we don't have to dwell on this, but that was the big revelation from this afternoon. We can now turn to look towards Packers-Eagles. I have a lot of thoughts on this game. I'm getting more excited for this game as we get closer. But I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't begin the show with the comments from Jeff Hafley and trying to figure out what exactly happened at the end of the game that was as mismanaged as any end of game scenario I've seen from a Packers coaching staff in a long time. 608-321-1670 to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Bills, you beautiful son of a gun. You are fired up on this Thursday.
Well, a little bit, Thomas in lacrosse. What's going on?
You are fired up, and I freaking love that, man. It's a big game. Here's the thing. I already told you earlier this week. I'm already counting this out. I'm looking ahead to the offseason. I had a great conversation actually with a guest at Festival Foods today.
Okay.
Here, and I want to get your take on it, if that's all right.
Yeah. What'd he say? Or she?
Okay. So say what?
What did the person at Festival Foods say? Yeah. What did you talk about?
Yeah. We talked about like the receiver corps. So in my mind, I see us getting rid of Christian Watson. And I talked with Rob Robinson, for folks who know, on my podcast. I recorded a whole bunch, by the way, talking towards BL Thomas. That's my blog on Spotify if you want to go and check it out. But anyway, we talked about it recently on my podcast about Christian Watson. Tough injury. And I freaking hate it for him because he couldn't stay on the field. And then my thing in my mind is, who becomes our next go-to receiver, right, Grant? In my mind, I see it as Romeo Doubs, all right? Yeah. I don't know about you, but Romeo Doubs, I see behind him could be Dontavian Wicks, and then I think we absolutely 1,000% should go for a wide receiver or tight end to help bolster just slightly, even just a tiny bit, that wide receiver, that tight end depth. Obviously, we'll definitely go D. I mean, we've done it the past 5-6 years, but I'm going to hang up here and listen off here. What are your thoughts on that and just the overall offseason plans you think for the Packers just overall as an organization? So
we can talk more about the offseason, Thomas. That's a good point on the wide receivers. We can talk more about the offseason when we get there. I agree with you on Watson. I'm out. And it's nothing personal. I really like him. How many times did I talk about after his media availabilities this season? I'm like, yeah, I really like his messaging. I think he gets it. He basically spoke on behalf of Romeo Doubs when Doubs was suspended earlier this year, and he wasn't available to the media. I think it was on a Wednesday. So basically, Watson became, everyone's like, well, we'll ask Christian Watts about it. And I thought he handled it really well. I really like him. His skill set's awesome. He can't stay healthy. Okay. So this injury, from a weird way, in a long-term team building perspective, is a blessing in disguise. You move on. I wish Doubs was a little bit healthier this year. And and some of that is his own doing. He was suspended for a game. I think he needs to be the guy that steps up in Philly the same way that he did in Dallas last year and really goes and makes some plays and gets this passing game kind of rolling. He made a couple catches early against Dallas last year. Weren't great throws, but got the offense into a rhythm by pulling him in, creating drives, extending drives, getting him rolling down the field, confidence building for everyone involved. Yeah, Doubs is my guy. And I think he should be focal to this game plan. If they lose this Sunday and Romeo Doubs doesn't get a lot of chances to make plays, I'm going to feel like it's a missed opportunity. Not only to win the game, because I think he's their most trustworthy remaining guy, but also I'll kind of feel lost about how to feel about this wide receiving core going into the offseason. So I want him to get a shot to be wide receiver 1 to make some plays, because I think that's what's best for them to win. But also I would like to see what he's capable of in that situation as something to bear in mind going into this offseason. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Matt from Cross Plains. How you been, man?
I'm doing good, Matt. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, but I'm going to push back a little on this LaFleur thing. I think this was the exact correct time for something like this to have a bad 40 seconds of coaching happen.
Sure.
In a game when you're already in the playoffs, right? And I like to equate it as like Matt LaFleur is at like his favorite restaurant, right? And he goes there a whole bunch, and there's like 3 good dishes that he likes to eat, but he can't choose between them because, he didn't expect that first down play to not work, and then 2 runs in a row, and then next thing you know, it's 4th and 2, and there's 50 some seconds left, and he's like, oh crap, if I don't get this 4th down play, we lose the game basically. Or if I don't know the range of my field goal kicker and he misses it, we lose the game. So he had these 3 options, and I think in the end that's what Hafley was covering for a little bit. I think it was more the those 4 plays that ensued rather than the last defensive play of the game. But if I was LaFleur, I would have been jumping up and down, screaming at Hafley to get his guys in position to defend the field goal range of Cairo Santos.
The alignment, that's a good call, Matt. And look, I agree with you on that was a good time for it to happen. I just, because it happened, now I'm more concerned that it's likely to happen again. I will agree with you more on the special teams. Special teams had a horrid week, but I think that was, based on the last 2 months of evidence, a blip on the radar. I feel about the special teams, that was a great time to make some mistakes to hopefully refocus and rehone, right? I would rather those mistakes happen against the Bears in a game that ultimately ended up being meaningless because the Commanders won anyways. So I will agree with that logic wholeheartedly on special teams, because I think that's a blip on the radar. Good time for a blip. LaFleur's coaching gaffes, it's a good time for them to happen, but the fact that they happen scares the daylights out of me, because now I feel like they're likely to happen again. Whereas with the special teams, I feel like that unit's been pretty trustworthy. They haven't been world beaters, but they've been pretty trustworthy this season from a standpoint of not giving away points in possessions like they did last week. But if you're going to make some mistakes, all right, whatever. Just pin it all on the Bears game last week. It ultimately didn't matter anyways, because even if the Packers had won, their seeding wouldn't have been any better. You just hope that all of those mistakes were confined to 1 week. And I feel that way about special teams. I'm not so sure about Matt LaFleur. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, stirring the pot on a Thursday. We love it.
Vagabond John. I got to give you a shout out, by the way, because you were like months ago, for whatever reason, taking shots at Big Cat for being from Massachusetts. And now all of a sudden, like that's the whole internet today. I see he's owning up to it because some old WEEI guy from Boston's up his butt because some Survivor thing at Barstool. This has been a twisted quarter of the internet that I've been following, but I thought of you earlier today.
Well, yeah, I mean, I put it out back in May. I went back and looked at it, and I looked at the comments replying.
You remember when it was? I just thought it was months ago. You remember exactly when it was. Good for you.
No, I do a search. I like to look back at some of my old takes to see if I'm staying consistent. So I just searched Big Cat on my tweets, and I was looking at the comments, and they're like, "Yep, here's the real red shit. Doesn't even know Big Cat's from Chicago. Oh, here's the red shit again. What an absolute dummy." This dude doesn't know anything. What an idiot. All the hate. And I'm just looking at it today. I'm like, I could respond to every single one of those today with that video, but it's just not worth it. Don't feed the trolls.
Anyways.
But, I don't think it matters, but in the scope of Badgers and NIL, and, Big Cat's a guy that has a lot of secrets. And if there's one celebrity that I want to be leading the charge, he's not the guy that I want leading the charge. He's a self-proclaimed football idiot. Why do you want him running your fundraiser?
Just because he grew up on the East Coast or whatever, I don't care. What is it supposed to make him some fraud? So wait a minute. To get caught up, Big Cat grew up out east, grew up a Patriots fan, and then abandoned the team that went on to be the greatest football dynasty we've ever seen to be a fan of Chicago. It's not like he jumped ship for a great team. He eats it now every year because of the team that he became a fan of. So I don't know. In a weird way, he could wear it as a badge of honor. I saw he posted like a 12-minute rant about it today. I'm not watching all of that. Good for him. I think no different of him. But the Badger thing is pure. It's not like he's a fake Badger. He went to school here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is what he puts forward in his shows and on the internet that copies stuff, all this stuff, it is all to benefit Big Cat, which is fine. We just got to be real with it, right? Like that's his brand. He's a sports commentator. Moving on. I love you poking Hafley, and I think it's a great example of a new guy that's in a pressure-packed position. I know he was a head coach in college, and it's kind of fun reading some of the Boston College guys. Oh, Jeff Hafley calls an atrocious defensive play to lose a game? No way you saw some of that.
I didn't see any of that.
Well, if you dig deep enough, the Boston College, remember, they were excited to get rid of this guy. And when something like that happens, obviously they're going to surface again. But I love what you're saying. I think the one lesson here that I think is interesting is he ends it by saying that will never happen again. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, now we know we're dealing with a coach that has never done this before, right? Now we know that we're dealing with a coaching staff that is absolutely in a position with a team with a Super Bowl window, and we went out and hired a guy that is absolutely unqualified to be at the podium, right? And he all season long, he was kind of like,
harsh.
All season long, he's building this up, and the media loves it, right? Man, he's giving us a lot more than every other coach in the NFL. This guy's telling us everything.
I saw your comment on the live stream, and here's where I'll disagree with you. You commented earlier. Hold on, let me scroll back. You said, Hafley learning that spilling your guts at the podium each week gets you in trouble real fast. I don't think it's got him in trouble. I don't think at any point this season he's said something out of school. That's just the type of person that he is at the podium, which is fine. This is just a departure from that, and that tells me that he's covering for it. He's handling this differently because tell me, would you disagree or agree? If this was on Jeff Hafley and it was straight up his mistake, he would have talked about it in detail for minutes. And the fact that he didn't tells me that this is on someone else and he's covering for them.
Grant, if I'm playing poker and I'm acting way out, extra the whole time, right?
Yep.
And then suddenly my behavior changes dramatically. Mm-hmm. That tells me more than anything else that would tell you at a poker table, right? That's how you read poker cues. And so I'm not saying that he's gotten in trouble with anything that he said. I think he talks a lot. And I think when guys talk a lot, you don't hold your cards close to your vest. Now the media is going to be out there. And this is just, we're peeling a string here. We're poking, we're stirring the pot a little bit. I'm not saying he's in trouble yet. But now, obviously, on this show, we're talking about this could be a Matt LaFleur disaster 40 seconds. We don't even know what happened, but we're having this theory, and it's a great topic of conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Because of the behavior change of Jeff Hafley. And that's the interesting part, because you're spot on. His behavior changed dramatically, and that's interesting. And that's part of being a young coach that is going to learn how to handle media and how to do it. So I guess my prediction going forward is that in future years, he might be a little bit closer to his vest, especially if something like that happens again. And by the way, Jeff Hafley, if it is a miscommunication between players on the field leading to a blown coverage, that is absolutely going to happen again in your career, buddy. So never again. Only the stiff feels an absolute. So get used to it.
That's a good call. I don't agree with everything you said, Vagabond. No, this is great. This is stirring conversation, which is my job. So I'm very thrilled that we're entertained. I'm entertained. I'm glad that at least you were entertained, Vagabond John. I don't think he's got in trouble at the podium, and I don't think he's some rookie at the podium. He's been a head coach. He's been a coordinator before. I just think that's his style. And I would say, if anything, today, he showed real media savvy. He got in there, he was cracking jokes about something, and then before anyone has a chance to ask about the debacle with his defense that lost him a game last week. And he said, you know what, I'll just jump. Let me get ahead of this. He doesn't even allow for a question. He just goes and explains it. He doesn't make himself vulnerable to a well-worded question that really gets down to the heart of the matter. So I'd say there's a lot of media savvy today with Jeff Hafley. I think he's very good at the podium. It's just his style to talk a little bit more. But the fact that he didn't tells us something. I am trying to connect the dots, and I'm saying he's covering for someone. That's my theory. Not saying it's correct, but I feel pretty confident in that. Let's take a couple minute break. I'm a little behind. We'll come back. I have some Packers-Eagles thoughts that start with Edgerrin Cooper. Let's talk about that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes.
Edgerrin was Rookie of the Month today.
Yeah.
You've talked about him being really good, but there being more to get to. So what is the next step, but how does he get to that next step in his career?
To me, it's all about consistency. And I mean, obviously he's incredibly gifted, incredibly talented, and everybody can see the splash plays he's been making. It's, can you make all the routine plays when they're there? And not that he hasn't. I just think there is a level, and that's to be expected of most young players, that there's going to be mistakes. He's learning a lot of football and just getting acclimated to the National Football League. And it's not like a process that happens overnight. Obviously, he missed a lot of time, not only in the preseason, but he's missed time this season. So I just think the more he plays, the better he's going to get, and the more big plays he'll be able to make.
That's Matt LaFleur talking about Edgerrin Cooper today. And then there was a follow-up question to that answer. I'm not gonna play the whole press conference, but basically he was asked, has Edgerrin Cooper got more consistent at that? And then LaFleur's like, oh yeah, like he's getting better every week at making routine plays, right? He's improving, he's growing, he's learning every single week. So if that sounded like a criticism, and it sounded a lot less like a criticism than something that Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley both had to say a week or two ago. Actually, I think it was after the Minnesota game, when it kind of sounded like they were criticizing. It's like, God, he looked like the one dude on your defense with juice. And today, very, very complimentary of Edgerrin Cooper. He's the defensive rookie of the month, or the defensive, he won some award. I don't think it's the NFC or AFC. It's a defensive rookie of the month, I believe. And I think Edgerrin Cooper is going to play a huge role in this playoff game, stating the obvious. I saw Dan Orlovsky did a segment on ESPN NFL Live, is it? NFL Live, NFL Today, NFL Live, the show with Mina Kimes and Marcus Spears. I think it's probably the best football show on ESPN, probably just one of their best shows, probably their best show, honestly. I really like that show. So maybe I'll listen to that and maybe bring you some of that audio before the show is done. But I think the thing that excites me most about this game, or the thing that I'm most interested to see, is a healthy duo of Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker next to each other. Quay Walker practiced today. I believe he was limited, but I think he's going to play. TJ Slayton was limited today too. He said, yep, I'm going to play, which is huge for their run defense. But the duo of Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker have basically been these like two linebacker ships passing in the night for the last 2 months or so, basically for the full season, because Quay Walker started the season really healthy. I mean, say what you want about Quay Walker. He, for the most part, up until very recently, has been available, and the best availability, right? He was very bad. And then he got the concussion, and then he busted up his ankle. And as the season went along and Edgerrin Cooper played more, Quay Walker has played less. And then when Cooper came back, Quay Walker went down. And this weekend should be the first time in a couple of weeks at the very least. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and build the timeline, but this should be the first time in a while that they're both at least as close to healthy as you can be in early January and on the field next to each other playing their respective positions, right? Edgerrin Cooper, as we've talked about, and as Matt LaFleur has outlined, is fast, physical, dynamic, hard-hitting, right? All of these physical traits. There's a reason why he was a second-round pick. Right now, Quay Walker was a first-round pick, but Quay Walker wasn't necessarily, if you go back and read his draft profile, it's not like, man, blazing fast, crazy athleticism. Like, no, actually, looking back, I'm not even really sure why Quay Walker was picked as high as he was. So maybe that's a separate conversation. But Edgerrin Cooper, one of the top backers in the draft, if not the top backer in the draft. Fast, right? High-level traits that you can only get with more premier picks, talking first, second round, right? Day one or day two picks at the latest. What he lacks is his experience, polish, maybe some diagnostic skills defensively. And those are parts of the game that come with time. And as Matt LaFleur said today, it's coming, it's happening week by week, but he's still just a rookie who's played, 12 games, 13, 14. I know he's missed a handful. He's played very few games. Quay Walker is in year 3. He has 43 career starts, I believe 44 career games. He wears the green dot, calls the plays for the defense. He provides what Edgerrin Cooper doesn't, and vice versa. That's why there's 2 of them. That's why I think the idea was they're going to play next to each other and complement each other and fill in the gaps, right? Strengths, weaknesses, complement each other well. And maybe it's not nearly enough. Maybe the Eagles' offense is just too much. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley and that O-line and Jalen Hurts' running ability. Maybe it's too much. And this is a footnote because I don't still really love the Packers corners and the pass rush hasn't been enough. Although this matchup particularly, I don't know if the idea is to rush the balls off Jalen Hurts. I think it's more to contain him and hurry him and make him feel you, but maybe not get sacked. So maybe this is a better matchup than like Baker Mayfield in the way that they play for the Packers' lack of a pass rush. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe the Packers just aren't good enough, and maybe we'll see that Sunday. But the duo of Cooper and Walker is probably one of the things that I'm most excited to see on Sunday in Philly. And if you go all the way back to week 1, I think Edgerrin Cooper played like 10 or 11 snaps in that game. And Edgerrin Cooper spoke to the media yesterday when the locker room was open and basically said, yeah, I go back and I watch film of myself early on in the season, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I think he's grown leaps and bounds over the season. And there's players on the Eagles who've grown leaps and bounds over the season. Their 2 young corners, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, have certainly grown a lot. So both of these teams have improved. But I think Edgerrin Cooper and what he provides to this defense that I think is just, it's dying for a guy who's a game wrecker, who's going to make splash game-breaking plays. And he could be that guy. And the fact that he's going to be healthy and in a much more contributive role, he's going to contribute more than he was in week 1, and he's going to have Quay Walker healthy next to him, hopefully for the first time in forever. I'm excited to see what he can do and how this team can continue, hopefully to stop the run pretty well. They've been pretty good against the run. They haven't allowed a 75-yard rusher since week 8, and it was Tank Bigsby who ran for 78 yards. They've faced Achane, McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, both of the Lions running backs. The Lions were under 4 yards a carry in both of these matchups. This team should be able to stop the run. I think it's one of their most redeeming qualities. It's just Saquon Barkley and this Eagles O-line, especially with Jalen Hurts as a runner, right? It's just a lot to stop. So that'll be another challenge altogether. Let's take a break. I'm going to come back, get to some of your texts. Got to get this break in, and I don't want to be coming back at like 4:58 and taking 2 breaks back to back. I don't like doing that. So we'll break now. We'll be back. 3 minutes. Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. Sports Show in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show.
Wisco Sports Show, couple of texts, and then I think I could time for a call or two before the top of the hour. Bart says, I don't think he's covering for LaFleur, talking about Jeff Hafley on that one. He said they weren't supposed to be in that formation. He wouldn't have said that if LaFleur made the call. I think if it was Hafley's call, he would have said that it was his call. Hafley spills his guts on a weekly basis. Cone Roller says, I think the biggest thing that makes Big Cat a fraud, why are we talking? I brought it up, I guess, is that he abandoned the NFL team his father cheered for. You just can't do that. Knowing this, Big Cat probably went to Edgewood, but partied with Madison people every weekend. Interesting. I didn't go to UW, so I can't speak to that. Cone would be a better resource. Maybe he's on hold. Maybe we'll talk to Cone about this. Rick from Spencer said, Grant, what answer is more true? The roster isn't as good as we think, or B, Matt LaFleur isn't as good of a coach as we think? I think the roster and the coaching has been about what we currently think. They're the 7th seed, right? What did they finish? 11-6? They're the 4th or 5th best team in their conference. I don't think they're overrated. I think they're maybe overrated relative to some super high expectations before the season, but I think they've settled into the record and the general consensus of how good they are. I don't think they're overrated. The wide receivers haven't taken another step towards being stars this year, and I think that's maybe the biggest part that a lot of people missed on. 608-321-1670. Got time for a quick call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, hey, quick weather report from Dallas-Fort Worth. We shut the city down because we got a little rain and a little snow.
Which game is there tonight? Penn State, Notre Dame?
That's tomorrow. We got Ohio State against University of Texas. But the entire city is shut down. Maybe I'll get some cheap seats and be at the game tomorrow. I'll give you a report. Hey, about the Packers, really, I just wanted to play balls out, play hard. But with Quay coming back, play smart. Don't do anything dumb. And stay in your gaps. That's all I ask. They can beat the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is coming back. I picked them to lose. I did. I do think they'll lose because they always piss me off or disappoint me at the end. Kind of like an ex-girlfriend. But you know what? Just play smart and play hard, and you got a chance here. Jalen Hurts has got to beat them. Coming back from 3 weeks, that's tough, man. That is going to be tough. So I think the Packers got a shot, and if they win this game, they're going to the Super Bowl. Mark it down.
That's a take that was getting.
That's all I got. See ya.
That was a great call, Tony. Enjoy the college football game tonight. Stay safe down in Dallas with the rain and the ice and the snow. That's a take that has been thrown around a lot today. The first person who threw that out today, unless I missed it on the morning show before I got in, intern Austin said that. He said, look, if the Packers win the Eagles, if they beat this Eagles team this weekend, then I think they're going to the Super Bowl. And I don't think that's a bad take. Beating the Eagles remains a daunting task. I'm excited about it. I'm with Tony. I wouldn't pick them to win. Again, I keep saying, guys, they're 4.5-point underdogs for a reason. So there were people calling in to Bill's show. It's like, oh, if you think they're going to win, you're an idiot. They're not as good. No, they're not as good. That's why they're underdogs. But can they be just slightly better for 4 quarters on Sunday? Absolutely. We see that in the NFL all the time. Jalen Hurts has thrown like 4 passes over the last month, and he could show up and play great. But again, it's 4 quarters on one given Sunday, on Sunday afternoon. So I'm excited. And as Matt LaFleur said in his presser earlier today, you'll hear this comment in the intro coming back after Zach's update. Like, it's a great challenge. That's what makes it fun. Packers fans, that's what will make it feel good if they're able to pull this off. So we'll continue talking Packers Eagles next. That's a good call, Tony. Great way to wrap up the hour. Hour number 2, the Wisco Sports Show, coming up next.
You know you got such dark eyes.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Jordan Love was a full participant at practice today as the Packers get ready for their trip to Philly for the wild card round. Love was limited yesterday due to an elbow injury, but took part fully today. So, too, did backup Malik Willis, who was battling a thumb injury. Several others, Quay Walker, Evan Williams, Edrin Cooper, TJ Slayton, among them, were limited at practice. Packers preparing to go to Philly, and doing so coming off a pair of losses. Coach Matt LaFleur was peppered with questions about the lack of momentum this year, especially compared to last year when they went to Dallas and won won in the first round. He's starting to get tired of the comparisons.
I think that's life in this league. We played 17 games, and there's a winner and a loser every week. Whether you win or lose, you got to move on to the next game. And these games, the margins are razor thin, and you got to be at your best. Sometimes you can play your best and still not win the game, and sometimes you can play really bad and find ways to win games. It just depends how the ball bounces sometimes. I'm going to try to focus on what's right in front of us.
Again, it'll be the Packers and Eagles on Sunday in Philly. Eagles favored by 4.5. Kick is set for 3:30. Turning to Wisconsin, they announced 3 more hires for their coaching staff today, including naming former Ohio State linebacker Tuff Borland as their assistant inside linebackers coach.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Bucs are in Orlando. It's where they're going to face off against the Magic tomorrow night in the first game of a 2-game road trip. And Wisconsin back in action tomorrow night when they face Minnesota at the Kohl Center. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
We've got a confident group, but we know it's going to be a great challenge. And that's part of the fun. I don't think anything in life that's worth doing is without challenge. And so you got to embrace that and attack it head on and control the things that are fully within your control. And it starts for us. It starts with our preparation. So I never like to compare. I think every year is a little bit different. There's different people on the team. But I know you guys like to do that, and I respect that. But I just try to stay in the moment and focus on, like I said, the things that we are in complete control of. And that's how we come in each and every day, and how are we preparing for a really good football team. Sometimes you can play your best and still not win the game, and sometimes you can play really bad and find ways to win games. So I thought we had a great day today. I thought the energy's been fantastic. Hopefully we can build upon that tomorrow.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Jalen Hurts, injury reports out, a full participant in Eagles practice today. So I believe that means he cleared the concussion protocol, finally. So that's kind of what I was waiting to see. We hadn't got an injury report. We saw that he was at practice. He practiced yesterday, but was limited. And as we've seen with Romeo Doubs and others, you can practice before exiting the protocol, but you can't play. You need to fully clear the protocol. And it's been really annoying to try to get accurate Jalen Hurts information from Eagles people, because they've all been putting the spin on it. It's like, hey, is Jalen Hurts out of the protocol yet? And they're like, no, but he's going to play. They're just bringing him along slowly. It's like, that's actually not how the protocol works. The protocol moves at the pace of how the guy's head is doing. It's not like a knee or an ankle where the team's like, you can play, but we're going to mark you as limited, or we're just going to rest you. Like, no, you can't. We'll leave him in the protocol. That's not how the protocol works. Teams have no control over it. So it's just been annoying as hell. It's like, oh, Jalen Hurts is back in practice. Did he clear protocol? Well, no, not yet, but he's going to play. Okay, but like, that's not, you can't know that. You don't know that. These concussions are weird. So he was back fully today, which I believe, unless I'm reading something incorrectly, means he's out of the protocol. Jordan Love was full today as well. So as we get closer to this game, I get more excited. I don't necessarily get more optimistic about the Packers' chances of winning. And for every pessimistic or, complaining-filled call that we've got on this show, although we get pretty good calls on this show. And we get pretty good calls on Bill's show, too. We get a lot of comments where it's like, the Packers don't have a chance. The Eagles are so much better. They can run the ball. They can. Yeah. So all the things that you're saying, that's the reason the Eagles are favored. It's not groundbreaking. You can see the line. The Eagles are at home. That's why the Eagles are favored. Right, but for 4 quarters on Sunday, could the Packers come out hot, knock the Eagles off balance, get a turnover too? Absolutely they could. And it's that idea that's got me so excited. And Matt LaFleur said in his presser today, it's why I put it in the intro. yeah, this is a really challenging matchup, but that's what makes it rewarding. That's what makes it fun. If the Packers win this game, and I kind of buy into Tony and Texas's take, and intern Austin said it on the morning show, if the Packers win this weekend, I think in no uncertain terms, a light goes on. It's like, there it is. That's the win we were looking for. We finally got off the schneid. They've played good games against the Vikings. They played good football at times, I should say, against the Vikings and the Lions. It just hasn't come out their way with a victory. No smart, rational Packer fan thinks that they're incapable of beating good teams. It's not like the Steelers, where the Steelers got their doors blown off every time they played a team like the Eagles, the Bills, the Ravens, or the Chiefs. The Packers have lost 5 games, 6 games, by a collective 24 points. They're there in all of them, but man, if things can just fall into place and the light can go on with a win, well then, why can't they go to Detroit and win? They probably should have won in Detroit the last time they were there. You know what I mean? So if they can win this weekend, I think it, and as we talked about this last night, I think it completely reframes the way that we see and talk about so many parts of the season, which is why football's fun. It's a small sample size sport. Mike Clemens going to join us in a half hour. Appreciate you listening. It's the Wisco Sports Show, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, at Wisco Grant. We've got a caller who's waiting, and I'm sorry to make you wait. I don't want to make you wait any longer. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, bro, how you doing?
Uncle Packer, I'm excellent, bro. How are you?
I'm so happy. I'm thinking just like you're saying, we can go in and win this, and we're due for some good luck. We're due for some change in this. I think we can go in, and I'm not saying we're going to win a Super Bowl if we win this, but if we get a good game out of Josh, if the tight ends show up, we do some short passing, play different. They said that was it Monday night when we beat New Orleans, and we just had this great game. We shut them out, and they said, "Hey, we finally had a complete game."
Sure.
And then, one debacle after another. We lost to the Vikings, we lost to the Bears, and we just didn't get anything. And I am so worried about that last 40 seconds.
How could you not be? Scares the dickens out of me. Scares the daylights out of me, Uncle Packer.
I don't know who to blame that on. And I agree with you with Hafley, because he just does everything. And I think it's not his fault. If it's the head coach, man, that's scary stuff. He just lost it.
So, and for those of you who are listening, just hang on. When we're done chatting with Uncle Packer, I'll play Hafley's comments for you so you can get kind of a sense of what he said this afternoon and how we're breaking it down. Yeah, how could you not be worried about that? The special teams, to Matt and Cross Plains, he called in earlier, made a great point. Like, I think the special teams was a 1-week blip on the radar. They had a bad game. I'm not really concerned about that happening again. The coaching missteps at the end, that's a red flag, and I am scared about that happening again.
That and that kickoff for a touchdown was just the weirdest thing. That's just like 9/11. Nobody's ever going to come take over playing with a knife again. What happened there? I've never seen that. It's just weird. I don't think it's one of those things that you see could happen but never will. I just was like weird, and I was beside myself when that happened. I don't think I've ever seen
9/11 or the kick return. You were beside yourself for what?
Well, watching that happen. They just
which one? 9/11 or the punt return?
Oh, 9/11 was horrid. That was terrible. But you know how they got onto a plane with a box cutter?
Yeah,
now,
I'm aware how it went down. Yep.
Yeah, everybody would attack you if you got on a plane with a box cutter today. You're not going to get to the pilot. And where would it be now if you just kick the ball to the side? They're going to be looking for that from now on. I think that was a fluke. How did they fake us out so bad? Have you ever seen that tried before in pro football? I never have, where they just kicked the ball to the other side and faked out the whole defense or the whole kick return. It was crazy.
It was.
But I want to say that the Packers, who went in as a 7.5-point underdog last year to Dallas, and the Packers that are going as a 4.5-point underdogs to Philadelphia this weekend. They're different teams. And I think if we just get a short passing game, and if we finesse them, don't try to match them, they're a tough team. If we finesse them, it's going to be a different story. If we get a win out of this, it's going to be a whole different year. And I don't want this to end.
Yeah.
What a great week. What a great week this has been. I love this week with the NFL. It's so pertinent. And you're talking and everybody's talking. It's wonderful.
I don't want the season to end for the Packers. Uncle Packer, that's a call that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. I might have to clip that. In any event, whether it's related to a punt return or not, or whether it will ever happen again, who's going to hijack a plane with a box cutter? In any event, I think we can all agree it was a national tragedy. Jeff Hafley talking about the end of the game.
Ask about the last play of the game. Yeah, like here's the deal. And you know, I've been very truthful with you guys, and I'm not going to go through this one in length. Matt addressed it. There was miscommunication. It's not the call we were supposed to be in. Certainly not at that time. Obviously frustrating, disappointing. Learn from it, move on, and we're on to Philly. But I'm not going to sit here and get into rehash all that. And I'm sorry that I can't do that. But he addressed it, and it clearly was not what we were supposed to be in. Certainly. So miscommunication, not ideal with what we're going to be in. Disappointing, learn from it. Will never happen again. So learning experience.
I thought I'd be able to get it back on the rails during that clip. I still can't get over that Uncle Packer call. What I said about Jeff Hafley's comment, that clip that you just heard, or if you're watching the simulcast, you saw him. That was very out of character for Jeff Hafley. He'll spill his guts for minutes on end. And my theory, and I think that I don't think I'm reaching here. Sometimes I reach. I don't think I'm reaching here. My theory is that if Jeff Hafley had called that and botched it, if that was his mistake, that he would have sat up there for 3 minutes. He would have rehashed every X and O, every single player, the clock. He would have gone on and on. But he didn't, which to me tells me that it was someone else's fault, and he doesn't want to hang him out to dry at the press conference, which is fine. So who was it? Was it a player? Okay, protect your player at the podium. I was texting a couple other Packer people earlier today, and I'm like, what do you think happened there? What do you make of that? And more than one person was like, I actually think that Matt LaFleur misjudged the clock and thought, no, this defense will work because they only have X number of seconds left, and if we allow that pass, which was a given against that defense, they'll run out of time. They won't be able to clock it. And that was a Matt LaFleur gaffe. And that Hafley, complete departure from the norm in the way that he answered that question, he's covering. He doesn't want to put anyone on blast. And by God, if that was Matt LaFleur's call and that was his mistake, you can't have a worse 40 seconds. You can't do worse. He was unaware of the range of his kicker. He then took a timeout, which whether you're going for it or kicking it, it's the wrong time to take a timeout. And then you misjudge the clock on a defensive call that allows the other team to kick the game-winning field goal. You cannot have a worse 40 seconds as a head coach. If that was on the floor. If it was on a player, okay, freak accident, similar to Chernobyl. What did you think I was going to say? What, an airliner flying into a building? That would be insensitive. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on 990.
Eric on 990. Thank God. Well, talk to me about anything that's not related to. What's up? What's going on?
Well, I'm here to talk to you about what you've been talking about. I mean, you're fired up. It kind of reminds me of A Few Good Men, and you're just drilling Jack Nicholson.
Well, I don't. That's what I hear from Jeff Hafley. I think he was kind of saying, "Look, you guys can't handle the truth, so I'm not going to give it to you." I think he was covering for somebody.
You feel like you deserve the truth, don't you, Grant? You feel like you deserve the truth.
Well, I'm an owner.
Who ordered the Mountain Dew Cold Red? Who did it? That's what you should be asking.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the special teams gaffes, this has been a theme throughout the show. We had a caller point out, I'm glad that Matt LaFleur made all those mistakes when he did. Better to happen in a meaningless Week 18 game than for it to happen in a playoff game. That's fine. I just, if you can make those mistakes were so bad. If you can make those mistakes at all, you're capable of making them again.
I would say that it was in a meaningless game. It really, truly is a meaningless game, but I think it had just a little bit more meaning because it was the Bears.
You're okay. You're right.
Right.
When I say meaningless, it didn't end your season and it didn't cost you seating. I want to make this abundantly clear. I don't think any NFL games are meaningless unless both teams are out of the playoffs and you're trying to not get eyes hurt. They could have won and got seeding, and it's a rival, and they needed to play good. So when I say meaningless, I mean it didn't cost you your season, but there was meaning. Thank you for getting me to clarify that.
Well, I'm not here. I'm not here to prod you into anything, Grant. I'm not here to do that. I like your fire. I like your fire. And this weekend, I think every game is a toss-up. Every game is a toss-up. I really believe that. And that's what the NFL wanted, right? That's what they've been striving for, is to make all these games as close as they can. What are the Eagles favored by? 5?
I think 4.5. I can check.
4.5. Well, listen, if it's 4.5 points in the second half of this fourth quarter, that's an ass pucker for sure.
It
Your
is.
ass is going to be puckered up either way.
Let's
see
here.
So it'll be a good game.
Yeah, it's 4.5. It's 4.5, and according to ESPN Analytics, if you buy into that, the matchup predictor says a 51% chance to win for the Eagles and a 48% chance for the Packers. So that's a butt pucker, like you said, yeah.
Yes, it is. You are going to be puckered up. So I can't wait for the weekend. Well, I guess I got to wait till Monday. I don't even know. I don't even know where we're playing. It's like an inferno out there.
Yeah, they might end up moving that to Phoenix with how bad the fires are getting.
Right. That'd be a fitting way for the Vikings to end, though. Our beginning of our season was like a funeral, and if it goes down as like an apocalypse at the end, and you can see fire burning out of SoFi, and there's burning, and we go down, that'd be kind of how it goes for us. But it's all right. We've had a great season. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with going into off season with everything that's happened this year.
Right.
So, but I hope we win, right? I hope we win.
It's most we can do at this point in the season, Eric. Good call. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Thank you for not referencing any national tragedies in your call. Although, you know, Uncle Packer, he's a armed service veteran. It's not like I'm not going to tell him what he can and can't analogize. I never served. So you know what I think we need? We need a solid 3 minute. All right. There's one caller on hold. We're going to take this call and then we're going to take a break. Let's do this real quick. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Bernie and Bloomer.
What's up, Bernie? What's going on?
Not too much. I think and I'm only kind of catching the end of your conversation here, this talk. The Packers, I guess what's frustrating to me is the Packers are finally playing a physical, tough brand of football. And most physical teams have kind of a built-in mental toughness that I'm not seeing. Whereas last year's Packers, they kind of overcame a slow start and kind of shaky quarterback play to put it together towards the end of the season. And even though, you know, Aaron Jones was a good runner, they didn't really play like a real physical, but there was a mental toughness. And just kind of getting this team to match up, I like LaFleur. I don't think he's kind of instilling a mentally tough brand of football. And I think that's just as important as the physical aspect of it.
I think so. I think, and I'll play this. Thank you, Bernie and Bloomer. Thank you for the call. I'll play a Sirianni comment for you coming back because he thinks this Packers team, if nothing else, is physical. I'll play those comments for you when you get back. Mike Clemens looming in about 12 or 15 minutes. He'll join us with the latest from Green Bay. Busy day. Coordinators speaking. First time, as you've heard, that Hafley has had a chance to address what happened at the end of the Bears game, which isn't, I mean, it's all pertinent. It's all connected. I know that has nothing to do with Packers-Eagles, but it helps us better understand the football team and the way they're, you know, being run and coached and could handle themselves situationally in a playoff game. So I guess it matters. It all matters. It's all connected. 3 minutes. We'll continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1.
We're going to play a very physical team against the Packers. Who, I mean, I can't tell you enough how much I think how well coached they are and how good their players are. They got a lot of respect for this team. You know, you can tell on the film how much they talk about fundamentals. You can tell on the film how much effort they give, and that's a direct reflection of their coaching staff and their players.
Nick Sirianni yesterday? I think yesterday, yeah. Today's Thursday, would have been, yeah, I think. Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess it doesn't matter. Talking about Green Bay, and I think this is the classic, hype up the opponent. You see this at every level of coaching. I think there's some truth to that. I think the Packers do play with a level of physicality at certain positions. I wouldn't say that they execute and preach fundamentals and the details at a high level. I just think that's fluff. But I think there's some truth in there. I think some of it is classic coaching speak, hype up the opponent, talk up the opponent. A story that I always use, and maybe that this will land with, folks like, who did we just talk to? Barry and Bloomer. Folks at the Chippewa Valley. My first ever job in radio was like part time calling high school football games in Menominee with the legendary Jay Fall taking over for the legendary Steve Schrantz. And we'd do some callers. So I'd interview Coach Labuda. We'd have run-ins with Coach Labuda. Scared the daylight out of me. I was 17 years old. I was terrified of the guy. And, we'd ask him questions, after the game. And I remember one time he came up to the booth after a win, I think. And it might have actually been the last season that I did games, or my senior year of high school. They had just beaten, I think, Ashwaubenon, and they were matched up with Chippewa Falls, Chi High, Doré Field, I believe, if it's still called that. And it was the game to go to state. It was one of the, the middling rounds of the WIAA playoffs. And we asked Coach, Chi High up next. What do you know about this team? What do you got going on with this team? Coach Labuda, legendary coach, championship coach 5 times over, 5 golden rings. 2002, the Menominee team, probably one of the best high school football teams of this state, of this century, not to be all Bill Simmons. I didn't play on him, but why leave it out of the story? It's factual. And we said, Coach, you just had a great game. I think it was against Ashwaubenon. Chi High up next. What do you think? And he basically said something. I wish I could find this audio. He basically said something along the lines of, well, Ashwaubenon, they had a college-size offensive lineman at all 5 positions. Chi High, it's going to be another step up. They have an NFL-sized O-line. And I was 17 years old. I didn't know any better. But looking back, I'm like, what? What? All 5 spots. Oh, yeah. Chippewa Falls is turning out 5 guys who are all 6'4", 300 pounds. Where are those kids coming? Chippewa Falls. Really, coach. But this is something that a coach, a legendary, one of the most successful coaches in Wisconsin State football history, just with a straight face was like, yeah, they got like an O-line the size of an NFL team. You talk up the opposing team. You talk up their roster. You talk up their coach. So when Sirianni says, yeah, these guys are physical, they pay attention to details, I think some of this is true, but I think some of it is coach speak. You're talking the team up.
Play a very physical team against the Packers. Who, I can't tell you enough how much I think how well coached they are and how good their players are. They got a lot of respect for this team. You know, you can tell on the film how much they talk about fundamentals. You can tell on the film how much effort they give, and that's a direct reflection of their coaching staff and their players.
Doré Field, named after the legendary Gus Doré. I don't know who that is, and I apologize. But there's an article in Volume 1 about Gus Doré, which I'm going to read during this next commercial break while we await Mike Clemens, who will bring us the latest from Green Bay. Let's take a call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike Eau Claire.
Mike in Eau Claire. Another Chippewa Valley caller. You guys are sounding off today. What's going on?
I don't like the lack of confidence, man. That's what kills us. Like, Wisconsin fans always are like, "Oh, they're gonna beat us." I don't like. It's bad juju. It's bad karma to do that, man. We can beat anybody. It's the tournament. Bill Parcells always called it tournament. We can beat anybody any day, man. I like the challenge we have. Let's beat Philly, and then if you do that, you get rewarded with a trip to Detroit. Just game by game, minute by minute, game by game, do it, man. It's a tournament of 4 wins.
Yeah.
The buys get 3 wins and they're in, but just win 4 games and then you'll sit back in the off season and be like, wow, we just won 4 games, won the Super Bowl.
Well, Mike, and don't you think that if the Packers can win this Sunday, which is a task, don't get me wrong, doesn't the outlook on what comes next, doesn't that change? Like right now we're thinking, man, how are you going to beat the Eagles and the Lions and another team? But if they beat the Eagles and play their best game of the year on Sunday, all of a sudden, doesn't the next 2 games, that looks way different, doesn't it? You have all the confidence in the world.
We're going downhill. It's down the mountain.
Yes.
We start at the top of the mountain with Philly. And then I think Philly's better than Detroit. That's just my opinion. But we start at the top of the mountain. You beat Philly, then you got a chance at Detroit. Only because they have so many injuries.
Yeah. I think Philly's the most complete team. Detroit, when you factor in the coaching and the culture, that might make them better than Philly, but I think Philly's the better roster. I think they're more complete. They just have fewer holes and injuries, obviously.
Yeah, it sucks we don't have Jair, but he hasn't played anyway, so we should be used to be playing without him.
Dang straight.
So I don't know. That's the best we're throwing the best we can at him.
No, I agree. And teaming with confidence and excitement as always, Mike. I appreciate the call. Packers fans, you should show a little life. I am not pom-pom optimism up your butt guy. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But like, guys, you understand the opportunity the Packers have on Sunday. Let's have a little life. Let's have a little excitement at the possibility of what could happen. And if you want to be the person that's like, well, they're going to lose, just so if they lose, you can feel better about yourself, fine. But don't rain on my parade. I'll conduct my parade. You conduct yours. We'll have our own parade. But don't let this pass you by. This is a Sunday matinee. This is a marquee game, the biggest game of the weekend. Packers, Eagles, loads of tradition. The game will be outside. The crowd will be insane. I get a little life. We're discussing high school football over in the chat, and there is something that I want to point out here. Rick, who I believe lives in Spencer, says we're talking about high school football dynasties. Anago had a 15-year run from the 70s through the 80s. So it's funny you bring this up, Rick. I don't know the details. I'll have to talk to my dad about this. But my dad is from Anago, but they had, growing up, I think the situation was they had a cabin on the lake in Menominee. So they would go there a lot in the summer. And there was a year or two of his high school career where he went to Menominee instead. He was Anago. What are they? The Red Robins, Rockin' Robins. He was Anago a couple years and Menominee a couple years. And the way that it worked is I think Anago won a state title or came close the year he was at Menominee. And then when he was back at Anago, Menominee won. Like, just awful timing. Or maybe he was a cancer to the team. Maybe it was addition by subtraction. It's the first time I'm considering that. Maybe he was the problem. I have to ask him the timeline of that. It's funny you mentioned Anago. Anago did have a good run. Yes. Merrill. I remember the days where Merrill and Menominee were actual rivals before Merrill. I don't think they're good anymore. And I actually don't know how good Menominee is anymore. The Big Rivers has been all twisted, and conference realignment just hasn't hit Division I college football. It's hit us on all levels. Classic rivalries and history just tossed aside. And for what? Television contracts. Not in high school. College, yes. High school, I don't know what it's for. Travel schedule, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure there's still teams in the Big Rivers who have to bus all the way up to Superior. There's teams. We'll talk about this a different time. It's Packers-Eagles week. We're going to break. Mike Clemens will join us next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
And how hard is it to recapture that feeling? At least there was a vibe down the stretch last year of nothing to lose, just playing.
I hate the comparison, guys. I mean, we've got a confident group, but we know it's going to be a great challenge. That's part of the fun. I don't think anything in life that's worth doing is without challenge. And so you got to embrace that and attack it head on and control the things that are fully within your control. And it starts for us. It starts with our preparation. I never like to compare. I think every year is a little bit different. There's different people on the team.
That's Matt LaFleur earlier today. And that soundbite was sent to be by Mike Clemens, who's going to join us in just a sec. And Mike, I'm just going to bring him in. But Mike, I'm so glad that you identified that cut and you wanted to talk about it, because I have so many different thoughts about that. Mike is here thanks to the Bay Motel in Green Bay on South Military Avenue. You can make a reservation either for a game, or maybe you just want to take a trip up there. You want to tour the stadium, or just go spend a weekend in Green Bay. It doesn't have to be related to the Packers at all. Online at baymotelgreenbay.com. Well, Mike, I'll ask you first. What possessed you to include that comment from LaFleur? What specifically in that comment jumped out to you?
Because I'm trying to figure out where this team really is at after losing to the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the Vikings are a good team, and you had to go up to U.S. Bank. You're really disappointed because you didn't show improvement. You lost to the Lions at Ford Field, and after that game, forget about the fact that we were on the road, and those places are now tougher venues to play in because they've got winning franchises. And both the Vikings and the Lions fan base are there totally psyched up, especially in Detroit. They're just out of their minds in Detroit. It feels like Chicago in '85 with the Bears. I've been doing this long enough. They've waited, an eternity for this opportunity, and they're all in. This has got to happen. And a year ago at this time here in Green Bay, it's like, well, look at this. There is life after Aaron Rodgers, and we had a 4-game losing streak, and now here we're winning week after week, and now we're marching into the playoffs, and we got to play the Dallas Cowboys. But hey, if we could just be respectable in Dallas, right?
Yep.
And instead you drill them. I mean, drill them to the point where Dallas has not been the same since that game. All those games they lost this year at home, to the point where Mike McCarthy is sitting here still waiting, at 5:39 on Thursday afternoon, waiting to find out if Jerry and company are going to give him a new contract. So we were Cinderella last year.
Mm-hmm.
This year, expectations were higher. Coming out of last season, and as Brian Gutekunst said at the end of the season or going into the draft, we were 6 minutes away from going to the next level when they lost to the 49ers in the rain. So where is it right now? And I'm trying to, I can't, it's not in the air. It's not tangible. The players clearly were dismayed and pissed, and some players saying, hey, I hope this doesn't start putting divisions in this locker room, because we've been a pretty close group after the way that they lost to the Bears. But, a couple of guys, there's this one thing, and I'm surprised that this is not, I tweeted it out, didn't seem to get much attention, but I've heard from 2 players, Malik Willis and now wide receiver Malik Heath. When you say, boy, you're now into this postseason, okay, wipe the slate clean, everyone's got a 0-0 record, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But the teams that you're going to face are ones that you've lost to. The Eagles in week 1, the Vikings and the Lions, twice. And these guys are calling it the revenge tour.
Yeah.
I think I think Xavier McKinney must have planted that in his post-game rant after they just walked out the field and lost to the Bears at home for the first time in 6 years. But that's where these players are at. They're trying to get a chip on their shoulder now to say, we're not done yet. We're a good team. We thought coming into the season, this is why Xavier and Josh Jacobs came here to Green Bay.
Yep.
They thought they had a shot at a Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl now. We're here. We're right there. And yet, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it right now.
And something that I've pointed out and talked about this week is if the Packers can win this game in Philly, and they're underdogs for a reason. I think the Eagles are great. We will look at everything we will look at everything differently. You know what I mean? A different lens will be cast on everything. We'll look back at some of those games, in my opinion, against the Vikings and the Lions and the Eagles in week 1 and say, yeah, they were that good. They just didn't get the ball to bounce their way, or they made a mistake at the worst time. And what jumped out to me about LaFleur's answer, Mike, is when he said, sometimes you play your best game and you don't win. And sometimes you play poorly and you're able to win anyway. And I think when you compare the end of last season to this season, I bet if you got Matt LaFleur to take an honesty pill, he'd tell you, look, we got lucky plenty down the stretch last year against the Chargers and the Chiefs, a flag that wasn't thrown or a flag that was thrown. And I bet deep down, LaFleur believes this year, yeah, we were good enough and we played well enough against some of these elite teams to get a win. It just didn't work out for us. And I think that's why LaFleur maybe seemed a little frustrated in today's presser when you're comparing last year to this year. And that part of the answer jumped out to me is like, look, sometimes you play great and it doesn't work out for you. And I think they haven't played perfectly this year, but I think Matt LaFleur probably believes that they've played well enough to beat some of these elite teams, and it just hasn't happened.
So, you got the Eagles with as good of an offensive line, perhaps second only in the NFC to the Detroit Lions. Big dudes. Even bigger dudes on their defensive line. You got Vic Fangio, long-time successful defensive coordinator, who, he's got the DBs, like Darius Slay and those guys. They're grabby. They're punching guys, as they come out of the route. So they're very physical backs. Linebackers are flying all over the field. The Eagles are balanced in all three phases. Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts, a guy who often will tuck it under and run for 20 or 30 yards, but he's got a good enough arm to get by. So you've got this balanced team that beat you week 1 down in Brazil. And when it comes to this stuff about the coin toss now, and when you start a game, and if you win the toss as the visitor, what you want to do is put your best unit on the field.
Yep.
Well, who's the best unit right now for Green Bay? Is it the defense?
I don't know.
Is it the offense? I guess it's the defense, because as hot as Josh Jacobs has been in the first half of games and handing off to him, they've regressed in their passing game. And so when your question is, how are we going to look at this if, in fact, the Packers lose on Sunday? We're going to be really nitpicking a lot more. No, you should be nitpicking now. And I think as a fan, you should be, put yourself in a chair right next to Brian Gutekunst and the new president and CEO, Ed Policy, who says, okay, we've built Titletown, we've got this, we signed these 2 free agents. What do we have to do next to get to a Super Bowl? And do I have guys in place in Goody and LaFleur and his staff? They're going to make this happen. Now, I'll let those guys make their decisions, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that makes those decisions now. I'm the one. And, that's something we haven't even talked about. Now that because Murphy was self-appointed, I'm running football operations. This is not the Ted Thompson team anymore. You report to me. So I'm assuming that Ed's going to take over with that. We don't really know anything about that. He's been in football for life. His father was as well. And we'll get more into that next summer. But that's what you got to be looking at. You really got to be doing a lot of evaluations. You got to be doing evaluations on center Josh Myers. His contract's coming up. Or T.J. Slayton, who was able to get back on the field. He jacked his ankle up in the Bears game the other day. He was limited today in practice. So there's an awful lot of this is your last chance to see these Packers. Unless they pull off a miracle. Unless they're like the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, where they get Jalen Hurts to fumble the ball and they score a touchdown. They get some turnovers.
Oh yeah.
And they can flip the game and maybe come up with their own special play on special teams or something like that, and they pull off an upset. But it looks like a tall order today. Here's the other thing I've been talking about today, And if you're struggling on offense, and if it's the play calling, is it the scheme? How come Josh Jacobs now has got this great running game up the middle, but it seems to have affected everything else like play action and the consistency, and why isn't Jordan Love got the hot hand he had a year ago at this time? And I told you guys last spring when everyone was asking me, would you sign Jordan Love for $250 million? I said, yeah, but understand there will be a sophomore slump. That guy was in the zone in December and January. Okay, that was a mirage. At some point, he just said, I'm just going to let it fly. And he did. And he was in the zone. He's not there right now. And he's had ups and downs with injuries. And then the offense has kind of changed around him. And defenses are probably a little more aware of what his weaknesses or what yeah. So all those kinds of things have factored in. So think about this. James Campen, former longtime offensive line coach here in Green Bay. He's been back in Green Bay. Robert Saleh, closest friend of the head coach. He's been here consulting. And then we learned last week, Luke Getsy. He's been popping in and out. Former offensive coordinator for the Raiders and the Bears, but a long time at position coach here. Guys that they respect. And today I asked Adam Stenavich, I said, what kind of help are you getting from him? And he gave me a pretty good answer. I'll play tomorrow on Bill's show, but it was essentially, it's self-scout. These guys are coming in and looking at what we do. That's where they probably help us the most. Sometimes they sit out, but they're all helping offense. They brought in 3 or 4 different coaches, former coaches here, smart guys, to self-scout their offense. So they've got problems on offense. And then when they brought in the 2 free agents, remember that story? This is going to get written more now in the next week or two. I guess it was after the Saints game. We're talking to Xavier McKinney. And then Josh Jacobs comes over. And you realize these 2 huge free agent signings, they're not only free agents, they're the 2 leaders of the team.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically your offensive and defensive captains, right? Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. And those guys were more than proud 2 or 3 weeks ago, late Sunday night in the locker room after everybody else kind of went home, to say they brought us in March. They took us over across the street at Titletown to the Lodge Kohler Hotel. We're upstairs in the fancy restaurant, and Coach LaFleur is there, and Jeff Hafley is there, defense coordinator. Ryan Downard, the safeties coach, is there. So some of the coaches are there. We brought along our families, and Keyshawn Nixon came too as kind of an ambassador. And it's basically, listen, this is the way the culture is. Here's how it's going to be if you guys come to Green Bay. Trying to get these guys they signed the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then even after that, they get in the car with Keyshawn Nixon with the engine running. And, you got Nixon say, hey, man, everything they said this is the difference. Josh, you and I were together with the Raiders. We know what it was like there. Rich Bisaccia is a legit guy. You know how good he is. You come to Green Bay and these things will happen for you. And they decided to sign. And it was a huge turning point. Adam Stenavich was asked today, were you at this dinner too? No, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail.
He's probably fine. I don't know that he's the most dynamic. Well, I don't know him. He doesn't strike me as the most dynamic guy at the podium. Poor Adam Stenavich. So you mentioned, treating this game as an opportunity to watch some guys who you might have to make decisions on in the future, right? I think a player that I want to see get a lot of opportunities this weekend, because I want to see them get opportunities going into the offseason, but also I think it behooves them to help them win the game. I want Romeo Doubs to get opportunities to do what he did against the Cowboys last year, because I think he is their most seasoned, most trustworthy, game-breaking level wide receiver, especially with contested catches. If we get to the end of this game, Mike, and they lose and Romeo Doubs isn't central to the game plan, I'm going to be disappointed.
He is now, with number 9,
especially
no longer with us for the next year or so.
But Watson's missed games before, and that hasn't that hasn't been a kingmaker for Romeo Doubs. You know what I mean? That's not nothing totally new.
And people remember Watson's kind of alligator hands and famous drops, but he's had a tremendous amount of big plays too. And he's smart. He's smart. They can use him in a variety of ways, whether it's the end runs, the different kinds of routes he runs. They're always trying to just get the ball in his hands because, he gets great yards after the catch. So they've got, Christian Watson as their number 1, and they've lost essentially their number 1. Jaden Reed, for whatever reason, is trailed off in the last couple of months, and He knows he wants to try and do things. But absolutely, Dobbs is your possession guy, man. You know, just scheme him open. He'll catch the football, and he'll take shots, and he'll move the chains for you. You know, get him in regular rotation. I think now their deep threat becomes Dontavian Wicks. I think that's the guy now that they think that they need someone to stretch the field, send 13 down on the go route, and see if he can get the safeties to go after him.
Well, and Jaden Reed's been a guy who can read the ball and adjust to the ball and come back to the ball when it's way up in the air, deep down the field as well. Mike, before I let you go, what did you make of Jeff Hafley's explanation to begin his presser of what happened against the Bears at the end of the game last week?
He was, you know, staying in line with what LaFleur said. But, yeah, we had a miscommunication. That's not the defense that we called. We did not say take away the sidelines, and we did not say have safeties that far deep. Wrong, bad communication. I don't want to get much further into it, but that's what happened on that play. So, and I thought about interrupting, but we were into a flow because I wanted to know. I don't know if sometimes these coaches know. I wanted to tell them, are you aware that the rookie quarterback on the other side was in the huddle during that timeout that you shouldn't have called?
Yeah.
Telling DJ Moore, if they give you inside leverage, take the go route on the outside, and I'll throw you. If they're playing outside leverage and trying to keep you from going out of the sidelines to stop the clock, just do a little glance route, as he called it, a little bit over. I'll hit you on a little slant, and then we will clock the. He looks to the rest of the huddle and says, and we're going to clock it, right? So if DJ catches a short pass over the middle, you know, run up to the line because we got to clock it. That's exactly what they did. You know, in Aaron Rodgers fashion, they got the ball down the field and set you up for a possible 51-yard field goal, and Santos, you know, connected and beat you with that. So Caleb Williams, you know, did his part to beat that poorly called defensive lineup.
Well, we'll look forward to our final preview with you for Packers Eagles coming up tomorrow on Bill's show. And then this is it. This could be the end of the season, but this could also feel like a brand new beginning of the season. This game is, I can't, you know, playoff games are always important, but this one, for the perception of the season and for what comes next, it just feels bigger than even the last couple playoff runs.
So Fox Network was here with this tremendous amount of equipment, doing a couple of interviews. They're going to do a feature on Josh Jacobs versus Saquon Barkley, and probably, hey, look, it's the return of the running back. You know, so that's going to be one of the big pregame features. So yeah, there's some satellite trucks and all that, but essentially, we already knew that the game against the Bears was the last game of the season here in Green Bay. So you walk through some of the rooms, it's like, you know, all the stock is taken out. All the chairs are stacked up on the table. You know, it's just like being at a bar at, you know, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's closing time here. And it's a chilling, creepy feeling. Everywhere you look, you know, in this stadium or facility, they're like, yeah, okay, we're getting ready to close. Yeah, you know, till next spring or so, or until the draft comes here.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a creepy thing of the atmosphere here right now. As I sit here chilling in my office, it's freezing. I got to get my coat on.
And yet, if they win on Sunday, which I know they're not favored, but if they win on Sunday, it's going to feel like the start of a brand new season.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and that team will find that confidence that they do have a groove.
Yeah,
and they can play together, and they can shock the world, and that would be the best story to cover for sure.
Appreciate it, Mike. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Bill's show to wrap up the week.
Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Mike Clemens. Appreciate it. Bay Motel in Green Bay brings us Mike and his coverage from Green Bay. 3 minutes. We'll take our last break of the show, and then we'll turn things over to Thorson and Heilprin. They're waiting. They're standing by at Monks and Sun Prairie.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Last couple minutes of the Wisco Sports Show. A couple minutes away from Thorson and Heilprin. Live at Monks and Sun Prairie. So if you're listening on WOZN, member of our Madison audience, you're on your way home from work, you know where a perfect place to watch tonight's playoff game is? No Thursday night football, which is a bummer, but a college football playoff game tonight? Monks. I recommend the wings. They are unbelievable. Also, the best beer you'll have in town. Ebo can attest to that. Bartender knows his order. So Ebo was telling me this morning, yeah, I'm feeling a little under the weather. Probably shouldn't have a beer tonight, but gosh, they're just so good. And the bartender knows my order. It's going to be ready for me when I get there. So they're going to talk Badger football, Packer football, whatever else comes up. And if you're in the Madison area, stop by. Be there until 7, probably a little bit later, and watch some of the game, get some food and drink, and hang out with Zach and Ebo. They are a wonderful, wonderful, fun, good time. Food and drink special. Stop by and enjoy all that. Tomorrow, our final Packers-Eagles, I don't know about predictions, but our final takes. One more day of practice, one more injury report. We'll get all the latest information from Green Bay. And we'll say our piece before probably the biggest Packers game, well, since last year's game against the Niners. This is a big one for a lot of reasons, as we talked about with Mike. We'll talk about it all tomorrow starting at 4. Never miss a Friday show.